All right. Good morning, good afternoon, depending what part of the world you're in. And welcome to What's Privacy Got to Do with It, the community live stream show put on by the TLC Group of Companies and Abacus Ltd. My name is Taheera Lovell. I am the CEO of the TLC Group of Companies. So, Lennox, tell us about how your day is going and how excited you are to be with me on this live stream today.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. As Sarah said, I'm Lennox Cumberbatch and I'm from Abacus Ltd. Here in Bermuda. And we are excited once again to be putting on this third show in the series with TLC and Sierra. Um, like everyone else who've been attending, we've been learning a lot throughout these sessions, and we are looking forward to sharing some information with you guys again, as well as learning ourselves in this third session in our series.
Yes, and the theme this month's session is knowledge is power. So, Lennox, tell me, when you hear that phrase, knowledge is power, what does that sort of mean to you? How does that translate for you in your role over at Abacus or just generally?
Well, what it really means to me is that the more information, knowledge you have, um, really into you can convert that into power. And what power really means to me in this context is that you can use that knowledge to gain leverage or to perform in your role, or to use that knowledge to perform in different roles as well as in your current role. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, we're here talking about data privacy, protection, cybersecurity, and how you can operationalize it in an organization, whether you're, a manager, an owner, an employee, or indeed a customer, right? Because a lot of our information is, of course, held with different companies and government entities, financial institutions. So again, the more knowledge we have about how our information is actually being used can empower us as individuals to ensure that when we're using personal data, that we're handling it in compliance with legislations and best practices, as well as a consumer or as a customer, that you can be assured that those organizations are also treating your personal data with respect. The theme we chose this month for Knowledge is Power was a little bit, a play on the fact that September for many individuals, students, whether that's school students, college, university, it's a time when you're going back, you're going to start or go back to learning. So we thought it would be, apt to sort of look at how knowledge around data privacy, protection, and cybersecurity can empower you in this month. So when we talk about data privacy, protection, cybersecurity, myself personally, when I'm engaging with even my mentees or clients, quite often there's a idea of, oh wow, that's, you must have had to go to school for years and years to do this, right? Or it's very technical and we're not going to be able to do it. I will say that there are a lot of transferable skills that you can have as an individual that can help translate into this space. So, a little bit later, we'll be talking about that, how you can build your knowledge, use your existing transferable skills to help you navigate the data privacy and protection and cybersecurity spaces. So, Lennox, what sort of transferable skills, just generally, like in your role over at Abacus? I'm sure you've had other roles where you've developed some good expertise. How have you helped? How have they helped you transfer that into your role with Abacus?
Well, one I immediately think about is that, like many people, I started out in a bank.
Mm,
Right out of college, I was working as a bank teller, and part of that job is actually, now I think about it some more, is data privacy, because
mhm,
you have to operate in a way that if you are dealing with a particular customer, that you are not um, divulging their information to people who are nearby, other customers who are nearby. And one of the skills that I really honed from that was, allowing myself to be able to communicate with the person in front of me without um, the person next to me being, or
Hmm.
in the next teller booth, being able to
Yes.
hear what I'm telling that person, disclosing the information about their bank balance or any other personal information. And I've been able to use that because in many situations in dealing with clients, um, you have to bring up examples to demonstrate processes or procedures to clients you're dealing with. And you have already done that with another client, but you don't want to disclose that particular client's
Hmm.
information or want the client you're dealing with to know who you're speaking with particularly. So you have to have that sort of skill to be able to talk around names or any personal information, but still be able to give the information to the person that you're in front of with, and allow them to be able to use that information for their particular issue that they're having.
I mean, that's an excellent example, Lennox, because you've talked a lot about how you governed yourself, right? Some organizations, they actually train staff on how to do that. Other organizations, it may just be sort of an unspoken rule that when you're in public spaces, but you're discussing personal information, that you do, try and keep it contained. Because physical space, quite often when we talk about data privacy and protection, we sort of think about the format that it's in. So we may think about, a piece of paper. We may think about an email. We may think about a website and things like that. But it's also the physical, the audio, open plan offices. Even though a lot of people are transitioning back in to offices since the pandemic, um, you know, there has to be some sort of understanding about some of those physical risks when it comes to data privacy. Because if you're in an open plan office and you're discussing something particularly sensitive that another individual shouldn't hear, some organizations have put in little privacy booths. I've seen a little privacy chairs where people can go and actually, conduct their conversation in that space. It actually reminds me of when I first moved to the UK, and I went into the doctor's office, as you do, to register. And they were just, I mean, it was very loud, and people were just talking about all sorts of medical information, right? And there was a real lack of privacy and a respect for personal information. And I did actually just register a complaint with the head doctor there to say, I think there are some things that can be improved here. And that was before the GDPR was implemented here in the UK. And there was the Data Protection Act, but it wasn't as vigorously followed as people have now, moved towards the GDPR standard. And yeah, since then they've implemented new systems, new processes. And every time I see the head doctor, he's like, you really helped us here. Because ever since then, they were sort of led the way in the local doctors, the local surgeries, that they were one of the leading doctors' offices that were really taking data privacy and security seriously. So, yeah, everyone, when you're in different physical spaces and you see different things, speak up, because you're not just helping yourself, you're also helping all the other individuals whose information may be privy or may be accessed in that space. When it comes to transferable skills, so my background was technology and cybersecurity, as you know, Lennox. But when it came to data privacy and protection, it still took a different mindset. Because as a cybersecurity professional, quite often you're just making sure everything is secure from sort of that external threat, right?
Yes.
Data privacy and protection is really about making sure that even internal staff who shouldn't have access to that information don't. So for myself, I actually took a couple of courses when the GDPR and clients were asking, hey, we're doing cybersecurity. Let's make sure we have this data privacy and protection piece settled. To make sure that I was at sort of I had a good understanding of it. And it really helped because when we did form the TLC group of companies, it was great to be able to meld the cybersecurity expertise alongside data privacy and protection. So these live streams, again, everybody, is to make sure that we help the community, wherever that might be. to get a better understanding of data privacy, protection, cybersecurity, as well as with Lennox's input and expertise, being able to get a better understanding of how you can actually put it into operations and manage it. All right, so let's get started. We're going to talk about individual knowledge. So, how can an individual take advantage of that knowledge is power philosophy? And the first thing I really wanted to talk about was from a customer's perspective. I already touched on it earlier. As an individual, we sign up, at a bank, we sign up for insurance, we give our information for employment, even. Again, that information should be protected. And there are certain rights. In Bermuda, there's the Personal Information Protection Act. I mentioned the EU's General Data Protection Regulation. There are a number, the UK's Data Protection Act, the California Consumer Protection Act. We could go on and on, right, Lennox? Because we've had this discussion before. But there are hundreds, literally, of legislations because many countries, if they haven't already adopted one, are in the process of putting a legislation in place. So, as a consumer or as a customer, your information is being held by different organizations. And what the legislations do is give you a few rights as an individual. And we'll just go through those briefly. Lennox, if you've got any questions, feel free to jump in there. So, for many individuals, sometimes you don't even know what information is held about you. You sign up for a little white paper here, or you subscribe to a newsletter, and you just don't think about it anymore. You're not sure. Previous customers, whether you went to a massage therapist and you filled out all your medical information, because of course they need that, right, Lennox?
Yep.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily know how long they're keeping it, who has access to that.
Mhm.
So the first right, which we talk about, is that right to be informed. How do you know that an organization actually has your information? And we normally see that through privacy policies, privacy notices. You quite often will see them at the bottom of websites. They maybe part of a contract. And that privacy policy and notice is really your way of understanding what that organization is doing with your information when they collect it. And then once you have sort of that right to be informed, it's the right of access. And what that means is an organization has a duty, if you request it, to provide you a copy of the information you hold about them. And there are differences in the legislations in terms of how quickly an organization has to respond as well.
Yep. So, Tiara, you just mentioned you have the right to ask an organization for what information they hold about you, but do you have the right to ask an organization for their policies and procedures on how they protect your information?
So the privacy, general privacy notice, so that would be a public document. You can ask an organization, can I see a copy of your privacy notice? Because of course, that will inform you of how that organization is handling their data. When it comes to the right of access in terms of the nitty gritty, the policies, and how an organization, what they're using to actually access to protect your data, that can be restricted. So it's more, the legislations give you more rights to ask about what they hold about you. But they don't necessarily have to tell everything that they're doing in terms of protecting your data. So they just need to say, as a general, we're implementing cybersecurity measures. Some organizations do give a few details, but again, it's more about you have the right to get the information that they're holding, so you know what it is that they actually have about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question, Lennox. Yeah, because of course, some of that information could be used against an organization, right? So, if someone had bad intentions or was a hacker, it'd be great to know exactly what systems and security measures are in place, so that you can obviously circumvent them. But yes, again, that right of access is not necessarily everything about the organization perspective of protecting data. It's more about what that organization holds about you. Okay,
Thank you.
sure. So once you know, sort of, you've got your right of access, and you know what information the organization has about you, you do have the right to rectify. It could be something as simple as, they've got the wrong telephone number. So when, a Belco or a telco technician is coming out to service your property and they're calling the wrong number because they don't have your most current data. It could be that your address has changed and things like that, or it could be something more serious, such as they've got the wrong social insurance number and your pensions are going to the wrong person. Again, that's why it's really important to get a better understanding of what information organizations are actually holding on you. And then with the right to rectification, sometimes there's a right to deletion or erasure, because sometimes, say you went for a massage. I used that example earlier, and I filled out that I had certain medical conditions or I was on certain medications. 2 years down the road, a year down the road, I haven't been back to that massage parlor or massage therapist. Is it really necessary for them to still have that information, right? So again, understanding what that is, you can say, hi, I don't really see a need. I've had my massage therapy and it's been great. I would request, and I don't plan to come back per se. Can you request, can you delete my information? There are other rights as well that different legislations have, such as the right to, restrict processing, or, consents around direct marketing, because we all have too much spam. I don't know about how's your inbox, Lennox?
I gotta unsubscribe every week. I'm unsubscribing from some sort of email that I probably give permission to get previously, but I just don't want to get it anymore. It's just become too overwhelming for me.
It is time consuming for sure.
Yeah.
So some legislations have rights and laws around that, which is obviously it's helped, I think, a lot, especially over here in the UK and Europe. The numbers of just spam emails and things like that I get is a lot less now than GDPR was when it was implemented 4 years ago. And then there's other things around, automated decision making. When you put in your information and it may say, this is what your insurance quote is going to be, or no, you're not entitled to this, or things like that. There are some legislations that allow an individual to request a human to actually review their application or their forms. And then there's also the right to, when it comes to profiling, automated profiling. Um, Oops, sorry. Can you hear that in the background? No? Okay,
No,
sorry.
I Yep.
Yeah, it was a little pop up there. Yeah, so there's also rights around profiling with individuals. But generally, the main ones that people do exercise. So if you're an organization, these would be the key ones you want to actually look at. One, as I said, is the right to be informed, making sure you have a document or some way to let people know how you're processing information. The right of access, having a process, a policy, a mechanism for people to request access to the data. And then the rights of deletion and rectification, making sure that there's a good operational procedure in place for that. Is some good steps I would suggest for an organization.
Right. So, in regards to the rights to deletion, is it legislated what time frame an organization needs to hold your data? For example, I know for financial data for companies,
Mhm.
especially that are audited here in Bermuda, there's a requirement to have at least 7 years of data.
Yes.
So, if the information that they're holding on you is impacts somehow their financial information, um, and you ask for it to be deleted, but that time frame has not passes yet, do
Mhm.
they have the right then to say, okay, I need to hold this information for at least 7 years, so I can't delete it at this point in time?
Yes, no, definitely. There are what they call lawful conditions or legal basis for an organization to process or store, use, keep data. Definitely legal and regulatory. So if there is a legal reason, there's a contractual reason, like a regulatory reason, then yes, an organization, but you can't ignore it. right? You can't say, oh, well, we do need to keep all your data, so we're just going to keep it. You do just need to respond to the individual and say, yes, we do have this data. However, for this condition or this lawful basis, we do have to hold on to it for this particular time frame. Again, the legislations aren't designed to say the individual has full control when it comes to what an organization can do with their data. There are, again, if an organization needs the data for a particular purpose that's covered under a lawful condition or a lawful basis, then yes, they can continue to do that. So yes, so organizations don't just go throwing away your data because you think that you can't keep it. There are some conditions that you can go through and just test to see, well, do we actually have a legal justification for keeping this data? But that was a great question, Lennox, because I do get that sometimes with clients where they're like, well, we aren't sure whether we should keep it. I'm like, well, these are the lawful basis under the legislations. Go through them. Let's see which ones actually apply. If you've got more than one that applies, that's even better. But again, you want to just have a look at that. Also with individual knowledge, and this is sort of, if we go back to the individual knowledge section, is sort of more your area here, Lennox, when we talk about as an employee, some of those personal responsibilities that an employee has to make sure that they are managing data, in accordance with that company's policies and procedures. So, obviously, as an operational expert, how important is it for employees to actually follow policies and procedures?
I think is absolutely critical, because then it really feeds up. Those policies and procedures are developed for a reason, and it feeds up into, and we're going to get to it later down, it feeds up into the manager's responsibilities, and also the board of directors' responsibilities, and the owner's responsibilities as well.
Mm-hmm.
And those policies are created that there is a sort of accountability tree in place, that if anything goes wrong, you can refer back to those policies and procedures. But if I can draw an example for us as a firm here at Abacus, in all of our service contracts, we have a confidentiality clause that we as a firm will not disclose client information to
Mm-hmm.
anyone else other than the client themselves. Now, then we have to have a policy in place, because then our employees must also not, because they're part of the Abacus team. So we must have then a policy in place of how we can ensure that that confidential clause is followed at all times.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's really critical that you have those policies and procedures in place, not just in place, but they're updated, they're communicated um,
Mm-hmm.
to the individuals. So there's knowledge of the policies and procedures, because we've seen in a lot of cases as well with different entities, there are policies and procedures in place, but they're only known at the management level or at the
Mm-hmm.
director level. So
Yeah.
the employees are still doing their own thing. So the employees really need to be communicated these policies, and maybe there need to be a process where the employee can confirm that I have read, understood, and I am following these policies in place that are in place.
Yeah. And that is an excellent segue into our next section, which is manager's knowledge, right? So, we talked about the individual. So as a customer, as a consumer, yes, there are certain things you need to know. If you don't know that you have these rights, then you won't be able to exercise them. So again, the knowledge is power for an individual. At a manager level, when it comes to knowledge is power, there are, as you said, some real accountabilities, Lennox. I'll just quickly talk about some of the legislative accountabilities for managers, employees, and staff. Um, there are financial repercussions as well as criminal repercussions. So, under some legislations, there is a financial penalty for mishandling data, personal data. That could be a fine of a few thousand, up to 200,000, up to a percentage. Again, this is as an individual. So this is where, as an employee or a manager, it's really important that you understand what those repercussions are, as well as when it comes to, um, I believe it's Jamaica, you can actually get a criminal sentence of up to 10 years for being in breach of certain data protection and cybersecurity legislations. In Bermuda, you can also get a combination of a fine and a criminal a sentence, including jail time. If you are found in serious breach, obviously a jail time sentence or sanction would be for something really serious, mishandling of personal data. But the legislation exists, so it's really important as an employee that you know how your handling data is in compliance with those policies and procedures, to ensure that you're protecting your own interests as well. So Lennox, do you want to just talk about, from a manager's perspective, about ways that they can help make sure that their employees are following, or how you can motivate a team when it comes to following policies and procedures?
Well, as a manager or a leader, as I call it, I mean,
Hmm.
you're really accountable to your team as well, not just to the people you report to, but you're accountable to your team to provide the relevant support that they need to allow them to follow policies. And this might include providing the relevant training
Hmm.
that they need in certain policies and procedures, or in certain areas, to ensure that they are following policies and procedures. Something as small as encouraging the team as well to follow policies and procedures. And you yourself should be setting the example for the employees, for the team, the people who you are leading, to follow policies and procedures. Because as they say, if the top is not doing it right, the bottom will not do it right either.
Hmm.
So you yourself have that responsibility to follow all the policies and procedures that are in place in your particular organization. As I mentioned, training, continuous learning, not just one-off training, but the world is a changing place, and a policy and procedure that is relevant today might not be relevant in a year or 2 years,
Hmm.
or even next week. It might not be relevant. So continuous learning and providing the basis or the foundation for that continuous learning is very important for a manager to have for his team. And managers also have some additional responsibilities other than what a normal employee should have.
Hmm.
And as you go up the ladder in terms of from an employee to a team member to a team leader, to a manager to a director, your responsibilities increase drastically, and you really have to take that seriously, because some people see themselves as an employee only. So I can get away with doing X. A
Hmm.
manager might not be in that same boat because they have the increased responsibility. Not that they're not only getting a bigger salary in most cases, um, that bigger salary comes with more responsibility. So as a manager,
Hmm.
you have to be aware of the increased responsibility you have to ensure that the employees and that the processes in place are working effectively and efficiently for your organization.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you touched on something there when you said it sort of starts at that top level, because if the manager isn't aware of data privacy and protection and cybersecurity, how can they actually effectively lead that team to ensure that they're being in compliance with the legislation and best practices? I think there's also something there. You started to talk about a little bit about responsibilities to their team. You want to make sure that you're being a good leader, you're being a good manager, by ensuring that your team are actually being kept fully abreast of what's happening. So it's no good, as you said, to release a policy or procedure and only the top level managers, have a good understanding of it. Making sure that the team themselves can actually act on it, and understand it, and that you create a space, I think, for your employees to ask questions. And it's not just, here you go, here's the book, go away and sign off that you read it, and no one actually read it, and you don't even know. There's no way to test, or no metrics established to make sure that people do understand that. So yes, definitely, for managers, your individual knowledge is power, but it's also equally important for you to be knowledgeable, to be able to effectively lead your team when it comes to data privacy and protection compliance.
Yep,
Okay,
that's correct.
yeah. And then next, we wanted to talk about, sort of the individuals who have a lot of power quite often in organizations, but may not actually be involved in the day-to-day operations. So it could be the business owner, it could be the directors, shareholders, right? Again, these are all individuals that have a not necessarily always a responsibility, but they're the impacts of data privacy and protection for that organization. They may have a deep interest in. So even if you're not necessarily involved in the day-to-day operations, processes, procedures that are taking place in the organization, at a business owner, director, shareholder level, it is very important for you to have knowledge about what is actually in place, as well as to be keeping up to date with what's happening with legislations around the world. Did you want to talk here, Lennox, about the roles of perhaps a business owner in making sure that data privacy is up to speed or up to scratch in their organization?
Well, for a business owner, um, the business owner has the ultimate responsibility to ensure that the operations of the business are going according to law, legislation,
Mhm.
and ethically as well. I think they have a responsibility to ensure that what they're doing is ethically acceptable, if there's a term. Um, so, as a business owner, especially business owners that are not involved in the day-to-day business, they must have a channel of communication where they can ensure that things are running correctly, that people's information is being protected, because it can hit their pockets hard, and also it can also result in them, if they're not doing it correctly, it can result in them being in prison, as Sierra said earlier. So, as a business owner, you definitely don't want to avoid anything that is going to impact your bottom line negatively, which, if personal information is released, lawsuits can happen, fines can happen. All of that impact your bottom line. So you definitely want to ensure that you have things in place to avoid that, as well as uh, getting a prison term. No one wants to go into prison and sit for a couple of days or a couple of months, whatever that may be. Um, and business owners, in most cases, are also directors as well. And Tiara is going to talk a little bit more about the directors, because a lot of people see directors as people who, once a month or once a quarter,
Mhm.
um, just sit in a boardroom to discuss the operations. But there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot of accountability when it comes to director holding a directorship in a particular company, and they have a lot of responsibility, even though they're not involved in the day-to-day operations of the company.
Yeah, no, definitely. Some legislations, they actually stipulate that directors can be held directly, directors directly responsible for any data breaches, cyber incidents of that sort in the organization itself. So, as a director, you really have a personal interest in making sure that that one, you are knowledgeable, you understand what is in place in that organization, and two, to be able to exert your influence to say, this is the legislation. I see that we have some gaps. What can we do about it? Because again, at that level, you will be setting, working to set the strategy of the organization. So data privacy and protection for many organizations has now been added as a standing item on their, in their directors or the board, the AGM meetings, because again, it is very important to make sure that you understand what that would look like in that organization, that best practice is in place. Also, shareholders. So many of you may have stocks or have invested in different entities. Um, Quite often, as soon as Uber just had that data breach the other day, their stock immediately dropped. So as a shareholder, you sort of have a vested interest as well. So some organizations, as a shareholder, you can actually write in. You can attend the AGMs, whether that's in person or virtual, and you can express any concerns or ask questions. Other, obviously, larger entities, you may not be able to have as big a voice, perhaps. But as a shareholder, you still can ask, what is the organization doing? Because, of course, you don't want your investment, your financial future to be affected simply because, best practices or there was something happened and the data breach or incident occurred and stock dropped because of reputation, or as Lennox pointed out earlier, that there was a financial sanction. There was that fee which affected the bottom line. So now your dividend doesn't look as juicy because the company has now had to go and put investment into either rectifying the responding to the incident, or rectifying it by putting in place new systems and processes. So again, sorry, were you going to say something,
And
Lennox?
to add on to that as well,
Mhm.
if we can draw a comparison between directors and shareholders, the directors also have a huge accountability to shareholders to protect their investments. So the
Oh yeah.
directors are really um, the team that the shareholders put in place to protect their investment, because they're not necessarily involved in the operation of the company. So again, focusing on directors, there is a lot of accountability that comes with directorship, and it should be taken seriously. And I mean, if any of you that are on this stream ever think about or are in a position of directorship, really take it serious, because you can from not performing your duties properly, you can see companies go under, and you
Mhm.
yourself can go under. Your reputation can be damaged, and a lot of that has been occurring due to data privacy breaches and that sort of stuff
Mhm.
occurring in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And the fines are only going to increase. So a lot of companies have already had sort of like a warning. Generally, you get that warning, then you get a sanction, and then if you keep having the same issue, not mentioning any names, Marriott, British Airways. And the only reason I mention this too is because a couple of times my information, I get the little email, your information has been compromised, and da 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 da. So there are some big name companies that are regularly being impacted. I don't know if anyone travels quite often, are frequent travelers. A lot of times, flight delays, or if the systems go down, it can be due to a cyber incident. So it is very important because that, of course, if flights can't take off or refunds have to be made, if you're a shareholder of that company, a few months down the line or a year down the line, when they're looking at profit and loss, that is definitely going to have an impact. So yeah, so the sort of three layers we've talked about today, at the individual, at the manager, at the business owner, director, shareholder level, or sort of the C-suite executive group. It's really important when it comes to data privacy and protection, for you to have a good understanding if you fall into any of those categories. And most of us will have some understanding of this, or some responsibilities when it comes to data privacy and protection, because we use email systems, we use CRM systems in our day-to-day work. So it's really important that we take this on board. And as I said at the beginning, we're all individuals that give our information. Some of us give it more freely than others. Just a note, just a little quick tip. Cybersecurity Month is next month, in October. So please follow our page. We'll have lots of tips coming out. But one of the tips I did want to point out is if you use, there's a lot of little quizzes online, and I see my friends filling them out because it shows you what their results are. Sort of it asks, what place. Some of the questions would be like, "What's your favorite car?" Or "Where was your honeymoon?" And you're answering these questions. All of those questions are juicy because the hackers, those are the security questions for a lot of systems. So if I know your email address, all I need to do is be able to effectively answer a few security questions, and I could potentially gain access. And some quite high profile hacks have happened as a result of that. So when you see these little social media little quizzes and they're asking you for personal information, just a tip, please be careful because it can not just affect your personal life, it can also affect your professional life because again, all most hackers need is an email address or a company to be able to know, to be able to access information. All right. So the next area we wanted to look at is knowledge building. We've already talked about different ways that a manager can motivate. As an individual, there's lots of different ways you can also learn more about this space. So, the TLC Group, we provide courses, trainings, services to help organizations prepare or improve their data privacy, protection, and cybersecurity posture. But there's all different ways. A lot of companies now are moving into gamification. And Lennox, I think you mentioned there was something that you have in place with Abacus, with your IT company, of how they're helping to continue to develop your continuous learning when it comes to cybersecurity. Do you want to just tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so with the IT service provider, we use every week you get an email, and basically in the email you're prompted to take some training. There are some very short videos. Most of them are just like 2-3 minute videos.
Mhm.
It gives you a whole set of information on and tips on how to protect information, how to uh, things to look out for. They talk a lot about what they refer to as the SLAM method of assessing emails and that sort of stuff. And it's also a point system. So at the end of the day, you get points
Mhm.
for taking these training courses and for answering. There's a quiz at the end of each session. For answering these quizzes correctly, you get points. And we use that as sort of a motivation for each team member to keep doing these courses. So occasionally at team meetings, we will go in and we will take a look at who is where on the point board. And we have team members who like always to be at top. But it's not just about being at top, because
Mhm.
with you focusing on that being at top of the point board, you're also gaining knowledge, because to get those points, you have to do the courses. And doing
Mhm.
these courses giving you knowledge of how to protect data, how to set up cybersecurity, what are the things to look out for. So I think it's an awesome tool that they have in place for us to keep up to date with the current um, cybersecurity issues and trends.
Yeah, gamification. If you're an organization looking for a way to sort of keep the momentum going when it comes to data privacy and protection, as Lennox says, people can get quite competitive. I want
Yep.
to be on the leaderboard, especially if there's some sort of reward attached to it, right? I've seen some organizations, they offer, lunch, for the department that does, who responds or doesn't respond, as the case may be,
Yep.
to a phishing simulation. There are just little tokens where you could just get, employee of the month when it comes to cybersecurity and data privacy. So yeah, when you were telling us about, when you were just talking about that, I thought it's a really great initiative that Abacus is doing. And I do encourage more organizations, if you are interested in gamification solutions to help you with your data privacy and protection, get in touch with the TLC group because we love anything creative to be able to keep people motivated. Because sometimes, you just, okay, it's something else to do. But if you've got something to look forward to, or some sort of competition, then it can, again, help you just build that knowledge and embed it a lot more across your organization. Um, what for you? I know there's courses, seminars, online, in person. What have you found, Lennox, has been the most effective way for you to take on board information?
Well, for me, again, going back, making it fun for me
Hmm.
has been the way that I have retained a lot of information. And I find when I do a lot of reading or attend a course that's very structured, and sometimes you're lost in the information. But when you make it fun and relatable to your everyday life, it helps in terms of information retention and also enjoying the process of gaining information. I think
Hmm.
it's very important that you don't see it as a chore, but as something fun. So that has definitely worked for me.
Yeah, no. The TLC group, we take data privacy and protection seriously. But when we do staff trainings, so companies can hire us to come in and do staff trainings, awareness sessions, things like that. We do try and tailor it to that organization's environment because, one, if it sort of resonates with how your organization actually works. So if you're in a very open plan, very loose environment, if you come in and you're talking about very strict policies and procedures, people will just block it out because it just doesn't make sense in that environment. Similarly, if you're working in a high profile, maybe a reinsurance organization, of course, that training would look very different. So when it comes to knowledge building, it's important to know for yourself what methods work best for you, as well as an organization to be able to offer different options to individuals, to the employees, to ensure that they're taking on that knowledge as well. All right, so we do have a special announcement coming up very shortly for those of you who have been following the LinkedIn pages for TLC Group and Abacus. We did have a little competition out there for small businesses. So we will be announcing the winners of that in a few moments. But just wanted to give an opportunity for anybody out there to ask any questions. Or Lennox, did you have any questions about anything that we may have touched on so far today?
I think it's more of a comment
Mhm.
in, in regards to the responsibilities of each individual. I think the information that we share today really shows that everyone has some sort of responsibility
Mhm.
in an organization for data protection and ensuring that privacy is in place. It just is not lying at the directorship level, but at each level of an organization, from the employee to the manager to the directors to the shareholders to the owners, if it's a sole ownership or another form of company, there is some sort of responsibility you have to ensure that information you're collecting from your clients,
Mhm.
and not just from your clients, from your employees as
Mhm.
well, is protected and not being shared, either intentionally or unintentionally, with people who are going to use that information for malice.
Yeah. That was a great wrap up to our show today, Lennox. I think that was the tidbit there. So there's no questions in the comment section. Feel free, again, if you do want to go ahead and drop it in as we keep going. Feel free, and we'll just pick them up as we see them come through. So, without further ado, again, as I mentioned, we did a competition for small businesses based in the island of Bermuda, where we were offering an opportunity to win one of four self-study courses that the TLC Group offers in the data privacy and protection space. Um, the first one that we're going to get ready to announce is the Data Privacy Champion. Now, the Data Privacy Champion Self Study course is a great sort of introductory course. It gives you a good foundational knowledge of data privacy. So, some organizations use the Data Privacy Champion in each business unit, they'll identify someone who will actually be nominated to serve as the champion. And it's a great way for organizations to, one, spread that knowledge in an organization, And two, that data privacy champion can come back to the board or come back to the managers with suggestions or comments or concerns that may be taking place in the data privacy and protection space. So the first winner for the Data Privacy Champion course, and we'll also put them in the chat once we announce them. Lennox, over to you.
And winner of the Data Privacy Champion is Butterfield Crochet and Crafts.
Yes,
So if you
butterfly. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Butterfly Crochet and think Butterfly
Yes.
Crochet and Crafts. So if you are here with us today, you can just drop a note in the chat as well, just to let us know that you are here in attendance.
Great. So the
Congratulations.
first, yep, congratulations. We really look forward to working with the winners. So you will, they all will receive correspondence from the TLC Group and Abacus following the live stream with details of how you can take advantage and get started with building your knowledge and increasing the power that you have in your organization. The next winner is for the cybersecurity champion. Now, people may say, well, why do you have two? Data privacy really looks at the policies, procedures of how you keep that information private or confidential. Cybersecurity looks more at the safeguards that are in place to protect that information, protect the availability, protect the, again, access, protect how long that information is being kept. So the cybersecurity champion is more. It's not technical per se, but it does touch on technology a little bit more than the data privacy champion. And the company that we chose for this particular course was one that is an online. They have a e-commerce a presence, and they really want to make sure that they are protecting themselves. Drum roll, please. The winner of the cybersecurity champion is
Simo's Creation.
Simmers Creations. Congratulations. Again, we will be reaching out to you shortly. So well done. We really enjoyed reading your response to the competition. The next course that we had available for the competition was the Data Privacy Lead. And this was a course that we developed. The first one we developed was an officer course, which we do also have available as part of the competition. But the lead was one that we started to realize that organizations needed not just the officer, which is the person that has the sole responsibility of making sure data privacy is in place, that the managers or business unit leaders, the supervisors, had also were able to support the privacy officer in their role. So we developed the data privacy lead course. So the company that we chose for this one, they could do with they did have an officer in place. So it was a great opportunity for them to sort of spread that knowledge through their organization. So the winner of the Certified Data Privacy Lead.
Valis and Herwood Limited.
Yes, well, congratulations. It was really interesting to see the number. We were quite surprised, weren't we, Lennox, of the different companies that we had, didn't really realize were on island, right? You don't realize sometimes how many small businesses exist or micro businesses, one individual who's trying to be entrepreneurial and, either fulfill a passion or fulfill a need in the community. So that was very pleasant to see some names that entered that we actually hadn't, weren't aware of. And of course, Lennox is on an island, and some of them he even wasn't aware of. So it's great to see that the small business community is still thriving, even through some difficult conditions, right, Lennox?
Yeah, and it also is good to see that these businesses, because they're interested in these courses, that they're taking data privacy seriously.
Yes.
Even though in some cases there are just one or two employees in these businesses, they are really looking to implement policies and procedures to protect the information that they're collecting from clients and themselves, employees.
Yeah, for sure. And then the fourth and final winner of the Certified Data Privacy Officer, which is our flagship course, self-study course. It has been endorsed by Bermuda's Privacy Commissioner as having a suitable level of content to put someone in a position to be able to serve as a privacy officer for an organization. We also have a Caribbean privacy officer course as well. So if you are in different Caribbean regions, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, we do have courses which can help that are more tailored to your jurisdiction to again help you make sure that your organization is following best practices. So the data privacy winner,
Lemon and ginger.
Lemon and Ginger, congratulations for winning the Privacy Officer course. Lemon and Ginger is a vacation rentals company, which of course will have individuals from all around the world potentially information that they're collecting. So again, it's not just because of where you reside. So if you're in Bermuda, if you're in the UK, if you're in the US, in a specific state, it's not just the local legislation you need to be aware of. It's the global of the individuals whose information you're collecting. Because some legislations, such as the EU's European Union's GDPR, is what we call extraterritorial, which is what we've touched on a couple of times before in previous live streams. But what that means is that they're the citizens or residents of that country, their personal data is protected regardless of where the organization is located. So even though you may be an organization in Bermuda, but you're processing information of an individual in Spain, perhaps, and it falls under the EU GDPR, then you also need to be aware of the EU GDPR. So the Privacy Officer course is a great global focused course for individuals who want to get a better understanding of not just the local legislation, but also the GDPR and global best practices. So from TLC Group and Abacus, congratulations to those four winners. Butterfly Crochet and Crafts, Simmers Creations, Ballas and Hayward Limited, and Lemon and Ginger. We will be in touch with you shortly so that you can find out more about how to get started on those courses. Okay, and then finally, again, TLC Group, as we come to the wrap up here, we offer data privacy protection cybersecurity services. You can follow us on LinkedIn, our website, www.thetlcgroup.pro. Please go on there, have a look. We do offer free consultations. I believe in the comment section shortly, you'll see the link. If you are interested in booking a free consultation, whether that's as an individual or as a organization, to find out more about data privacy and protection, you can definitely get in touch, and we look forward to hearing from you. Lennox, do you want to tell us a bit more about what services Abacus offers that may help organizations, not just with data privacy and protection, but generally when it comes to their business solutions?
Yes, so we here at Abacus, we are an accounting services and business solutions company, and we offer services such as outsourced CFO, accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, and training as well. And we've also recently launched our business advisory service. Look out for more about that coming shortly. And you can read up about us at www.abacus.bm. We have a lovely website that has just been revamped just under a year ago. So take a look there. You can see our team and our services. And if you're interested, you can reach out to us at info@abacus.bm.
Awesome. And I believe the last comment that's just dropped in here is for the live stream mailing list. So we do have a mailing list. So please, if you enjoyed this session or any, you can always go back to our previous events and have a watch of those live streams. But if you join our mailing list, you may get access to insider information, exclusive discounts, and again, just access to both Lennox and myself if you do have some queries about how you can operationalize your data protection compliance program. So, on behalf of the TLC Group of Companies and Abacus, we would like to thank you. We look forward to seeing you next time. And when is that next time, Lennox? Do you have that date to hand?
It's in December, so it will
1st of
be,
December. Mm-hmm.
yep, so it will be around the holidays time, and I'm
Yeah,
sure we'll have some great holiday information for you as well around that time.
yeah. Okay, so we look forward to seeing you on this 1st of December, and we will have the registrations for that opening shortly on our LinkedIn page. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you.